Hello, this is Robert James Fremantle here to talk about a really wide issue, to be honest. It's much bigger than can just be covered in an initial video, but I thought that I would at least make a start on it. And it's about the human race's biggest problem, really, ourselves, or that we've allowed a minority of us as a people to have the largest say and the largest amount of everything. And if we complain that things are wrong, it's because we've allowed it. That's the problem. We've allowed it. See, you think that you don't have power, that you don't have any form of control whatsoever, but the fact that you even think that is proof that you've allowed yourself to get this way, yourselves to degenerate to this state. What am I talking about? Alright, so let's look at the fact that new medicines, new drugs get created all the time, and as soon as they are available on the market, they're really expensive. And they could be helping a lot of people. They could be helping you, alright? But you can't afford it within the public sector of, or health insurance, however you pay for your medical and medication, or not pay for it in the case of like NHS, but you do sort of pay for it. But anyway, I mean, what is how does that make sense if it's only the rich getting it first? Because shouldn't everybody have a chance to get at good drugs, good medication, new technologies, so that they can benefit and live longer? Is this some sort of elitism? No. What it is it's corporate mentality. It is business mindedness. It's people trying to profiteer off of your well-being. And the reason is because the patent on drugs initially comes out, and they have to fulfill all the needs of the shareholders, and all this bullshit is tied up into these new drugs, and they're just trying to bleed as much money out of it initially, until of course the patent runs out, and then all of the different pharmaceuticals can produce the thing as they want, and the cost comes right down, and then you can afford it, you the consumer. It's then made into a mass available product, but you're denied it until then. There are potentially life-saving, life-altering, life-improving drugs that exist, and they're being kept from you because of greed, because people want to bleed as much money out of the system as possible, because they want to get maximum cash out of the system first. Them, not you. You're not benefiting from this, okay? They're running the pharmaceuticals, they're running the industry, and it's not just drugs, okay? This is the problem. This is the cancer, if you like, of greed that infests all of society, okay? And it's killing us. It's there. Just accept it, that you as a society, we have allowed this to happen, and now we're trying to live with it, and people are unhappy. They feel shit. Depression's at its crazy highest. People are self-harming. Social networks are out there and doing a lot of harm to people's intersocial relationships, and it's all just a pot. And there are so many ways, lack of compassion, people meeting less in person, so that they have less empathy, which leads obviously towards more psychotic-like traits, mass exposure to violence, creating desensitization, creating lack of empathy, as aforesaid, such as computer games with 18 certificates, and parents allowing their children to get at those 18 certificate things, obviously desensitizing them. You can't say desensitizing isn't a thing, because the army do it. Even years before computer games as a recruiting tool, they had the army that would charge sandbags that looked humanoid in shape with a bayonet and shove it in and then run on. Yes, and that was to get them used to the idea of sticking a blade into something that resembled a human being. It was to start changing something internally within them, and it's the natural human instinct when in our society confronted with the possibility of killing someone to actually falter at the thought of it, because a lot of gunshots go wide, much more than you'd realise, and in wars most of the gunshots are misses, you know, because people inherently don't want to take a life. We know that there's something wrong with it, because we're taking away everything the person's been, everything they are, and everything they will be, you know. And there's a sort of selfish thing about it that we realise that only because we also have that. We live by the same conditions, and we'd hate that taken from us. And you know, that lack of empathy can take that away. Even thoughts for self. As a society, we are really screwed up, and to be honest with you, right, the politicians you're putting in, the people that you are voting for right now, and the systems that you're allowing in place are not helping you, and they're not solving it. And these people are just trying to bleed as much as they can out of the system and out of you, run in power for a little bit of time, 4 or 8 years or whatever, and then go. And have you noticed that when politicians leave, that usually the majority of the people, at least especially in the United Kingdom, I've noticed, are greatly unhappy with them. They pretty much get booted out, don't they? It happens at the end of each Prime Minister's time in power, and that's because they come in with good ideas at first and then just resort to what? Just they fall into, let's create a term, scumbaggery, let's say. And you know, this is not even party specific. This isn't a leaning. I think the idea of being left or right winged or authoritarian or any kind of behaviour is foolish. I think there's just what you believe is right or wrong, and it's up to each individual to decide whether they agree or not, and whether they would vote for that person. But the biggest issue that I'm going to end on here in politics is that the reason you're still unhappy with the people you're voting for is because you're not actually voting for someone who represents you. And you know that, really, don't you? You know that. And that's why those of you that don't vote, right? Because you know that person doesn't really want to help you. You know that they don't really represent who you are. You know that they aren't really as passionate about trying to help things as you are, because they've had to step on so many heads just to arrive in that leadership position that their soul by now, whatever you want to call it, their inner self, their sense of self, is tainted. Tainted is such a abstract word, but in some way, if you could see into them, into who they are, you wouldn't like it. You'd prefer to let your granddad run the country than them. You know, you'd go down to the voting booth and say, can't I vote for him? Can't I just vote for anyone? And what if Instead of voting for a particular leader, you could just even vote for anyone you like in the world. Anyone. What if you could just say, I vote for such and such and his name is such and such? Local areas could get together and vote people in that way, local representatives, not even necessarily of a party. You know, they could establish their own communities, you know, their own independent parties that way. There are lots of ways that this could be approached, but we sure as hell know that the current system is broken, so approaching it in any other way surely can't be a bad thing. And the actual act of voting itself is broken. We're using a first past the post system where the majority of people don't want the person who's been voted in to be in. They don't want him. Sometimes like 9 out of 10 people could end up not wanting the person that's been voted in. How does that make any sense? That's first past the post. That's what you. I'm not going to go into how it works, but just to simply say that the current voting system does make no sense, because the person that you would want to represent you, well, isn't even available as one of the names. You're voting for someone and then, oh gosh, it's the other one that's just won. So it very much ends up that a small majority, that a small handful of voters within an area can hugely affect the sway of a vote. So they go door to door and they're using computers. They're punching out stats and onto little leaflets and things and sending them through your door and saying, you know, these are the local issues and these are the things, and all they're doing, right, is manipulating you. They're not coming along and saying, these are the issues I feel strongly about. What they're really saying is, these are the issues that the computer technology has told me that you feel strongly about, that I'm going to champion to try and get your votes. Now, if they put it like that, would you vote for them? So no. But because they don't put it like that, you do. But it's what they mean. So we need to review hugely how voting even works, and then you might actually get some of the young, new, clued-in people on board. It's not just apathy, you know. They've lost all faith in the system of these grey-skinned, suited, selfish morons, and it has to change. And the only ones that are going to affect change will be you. That is my first video.